Hey gang, hope you all are doing well. Welcome to another video. Today I've got for you Warframe University Episode 1, Modding Your Warframe. This is going to be a pretty important one. Same with Episode 0. If you are a newer player, I suggest you watch that first. If you're newer with some more hours or more intermediate to advanced, you can just watch this video straight up, no biggie. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate you guys' support with the likes, the positive comments, the subs, so much. Keep it up. I'm very proud of the community that I'm growing here. And I know I'm a small channel at the moment, but just know that I appreciate every single one of you immensely. I do respond to just about every comment. I think currently I'm like, I've responded to everyone, but regardless, that's the main goal. Thank you guys so much for such a positive community. Anyways, just like we did in Episode 0, we're going to walk up to the arsenal and we're going to hit the swap button to equip the Warframe that we want to mod. In this case, I already have Volt equipped. He's just going to be our example frame for today. And then we're going to hit upgrade. So the scary menu, I know, I promise it's going to be okay. The first thing we want to do is equip an aura mod. The main reason that we do this first is because it establishes kind of the true amount of capacity we have, especially without a reactor early on to double our mod capacity. We want to get a clear image of how we're doing. So notice I removed Jimmer's Bond here, my capacity goes down significantly. So we're going to filter by aura. Now aura mods, what they do is they give you the mod capacity, but they also provide a buff to you and your whole team. Don't stress it too much. There aren't really too many frames that need a specific aura. I would say the closest thing we've got is Summoner's Wrath, because there are so few summoners summoning like damage buff mods in the game. So generally Summoner's Wrath, like if you're playing Caliban, I think Araxia, Necros, if you can get Summoner's Wrath, you'll want that, but that's not a hard mod to get in the first place. I've got 40 copies, so just keep that in mind. If you're a new player, it's very likely that you're just going to be putting Dreamer's Bond onto as many Warframes as you can. Do note that the Nightwave shop cred offerings is a great source of aura mods. So if you're watching, a YouTuber's video like mine, for example, of a Warframe guide, and you see a aura you've never seen before, checking her shop is a great way to get that. Your main goal here is just to make sure you're not equipping something useless. Don't equip Pistol Scavenger if you're not running out of pistol ammo. Don't take a Sniper Scavenger or Deadeye. Where is that one? Don't take Deadeye sniper rifle damage if you're not running a sniper. But really the priority here should be, in my opinion at least, matching the polarity to get as much mod capacity as possible, even if the aura mod is useless otherwise. So now we're going to get onto energy economy and survivability, starting with survivability because generally your Warframe can't do a whole lot. If your Warframe is no longer with us every 10 seconds, that's kind of problematic. We're not able to survive. Likewise, survivability varies very intensely between Warframes. Warframes like Revenant don't invest in survivability via survivability mods. He does it in other ways. Warframes with invisibility likewise are similar in that they don't need much in terms of traditional survivability mods, which is really important that I note when I get into the section. Energy economy as well basically represents how well we keep our energy high so we can keep casting abilities, so that way we don't fail mission objectives, or so that we just complete them faster. For example, if you run out of energy on Frost, you can't cast your Snow Globe, you can't protect the objective. That's going to be really unfortunate. Run out of energy on Saren, you can't kill things anymore. You're just a sitting duck, and that's really unfortunate. And that's tied in with survivability a little bit as well, because many frames rely on abilities on top of mods in order to keep themselves alive. So survivability and energy econ, in my opinion, are the most important vital points to hit before you start throwing in your other mods. So let's get started. So survivability in Warframe is a little bit tricky to a new player, and early on you might not be struggling so much, so you're not really forced to engage with what survivability even means, and that's probably a good thing, right? But so in Warframe, we've got shield, a shield gate, and then armor and health. Armor and health are very intertwined, and that's super important, but we're going to go through, and actually Warframe didn't always have this to my knowledge, but if you hover over shield, armor, energy, all this stuff over here, it actually gives you a pretty detailed description of what we've got going on. So in the process of surviving, we have shield, a shield gate, and then our health. In this case, by the way, worth noting, there are a few Warframes that do not possess shields and therefore don't have a shield gate, but they make up for it in other ways, generally speaking. So anyway, besides those cases, starting with shields, shields reduce damage by 50%, meaning they have innate 50% DR, damage reduction, and toxin bypasses them, which is a very, I shouldn't say niche issue, because it does come up quite often, and that kind of content can be very frustrating for those who rely on shields, but that's not really the point of discussion here. And then when those shields break, or you become invulnerable for an amount of time that scales with your max shields. This is what we call a shield gate. Even new players have probably heard the word shield gate by now. It's really important. It's a really strong method of survivability. Shields recharge automatically after damage is taken with a delay of 1 second. In this case, this number here, this 1 second, is affectable by mods, which is really important. Likewise, shields recharge at a rate of 37.8 per second. Rate scales with max shields. Likewise, that rate is also affectable by mods. Not only mods that increase your max shields, but there's also mods that do directly impact that recharge rate. So now our shields are broken, and now our shield gate's done. The duration's over. We move on to health and armor. Some Warframes rely on health and armor. Health and armor are very intertwined, and when you're building them with those mods, you should be trying to get an even 1-to-1 ratio. So health is just how much number you got till you drop over and no longer exist. Sorry, it's a YouTube video. I don't think I can say that word, unfortunately. But and then armor basically represents the damage reduction that is given to you on your health. Armor does not affect shields, which is worth noting. Armor only affects health. So that's why you kind of want that 1-to-1 ratio, because they multiply. If you invest too high into health, then you have a big number that falls over pretty quickly. But if you have a bunch of armor, you know, you're not taking much damage, but your health pool is lower. So, you know, having these together, because they multiply, I don't really want to make this too math heavy of a guide series, but EHP, effective health points, is effectively how much health you truly have. Volt doesn't actually have 270 points of damage. He has an equation that looks like, you know, 270 times 1.259, something like that. That's the HP calculation, but that's not really important to talk about. So how do we know what we're going to build for? Well, we've got shield tanking, which means getting a massive shield and then replenishing it through abilities. Different mods can help replenish it as well. Like I mentioned, we have shield gating, which is a technique that actually has us shrinking our shields, having smaller shields. That way we can get our shields back. And then get that shield gate again. We're really playing to get a consistent shield gate to get consistent invulnerability, which is why this is considered the strongest method of survivability. That is because it is invulnerability, meaning it scales indefinitely. And then health and armor tanking. This involves building a bunch of health, a bunch of armor, and multiplying those values as best we can, and then utilizing things like lifesteal or abilities that replenish health to keep that up. So pretty fundamental, basic concepts, basically just taking with our shields, taking with our health, or utilizing the shield gate mechanic to stay invulnerable. The shield gating is depending on how you play it, a more active play style, and in the early game you're just going to be shield tanking for the most part, a little bit of health tanking as well, but in the early game just don't stress your survivability. You'll probably be doing a little bit of both, and all Warframes do a little bit of both. I mean, every Warframe with a shield can shield gate. Just how many mods you want to contribute towards the shield gate effect is really up to you. So let's take a look at the survivability mods that we have on hand to create these builds. So these are the majority of the mods that you're going to be seeing when you're trying to build any kind of survivability. Obviously, you're not going to put all these in at once. This is just more for display. Steel Fiber and Vitality are going to be the main mods for your armor and health approach. The game plan is really simple. Thankfully, you just put the mods in and hopefully have some sort of life replenish. That's it. Lifesteal, whatever your kit has to get health back, that's it. There is no game plan, just live, that's it. And because of that, it ends up being a pretty inferior version of tanking, but it will work for the majority of DE's intended content. So people do complain quite a bit about armor and health tanking. Know that it is technically an inferior option, but that's only technically, and there's certain contexts that there's all sorts of things involved that are beyond this current guide. So just know that it's a perfectly valid approach, and especially if you got some lifesteal, it works quite well. Shield tanking is going to usually use max shields in terms of redirection, and then fast deflection will usually come into play if possible, but usually shield tankers actually have shield replenish built into their kit, whether that's Hera with his chains, Hildren with pillage, so on and so forth. Usually they're going to have some sort of way to get their shields back. If not, the augur set, which I'll mention in a little bit, or fast deflection really help out. Another big thing with shield tanking is they're going to use what's called non-armor DR, or non-armor damage reduction. The example here I have is Aviator, but something like Adaptation works really well. That's the main one that people use. Basically, damage reduction that is not tied to armor, because like I mentioned, armor does not work on shields, it only works on health. So keep that in mind. So with shielding, we just want max shield, and then ideally our kit can replenish shields, but the augur set, fast deflection here is going to make it so your shields recharge faster, and also so that the delay that normally occurs after you like break your shields and your shield gate expires, this will make that replenish process come by faster. Same with vigilante vigor, these do the same thing. This gets the vigilante set bonus, which is a slight DPS increase on your primary weapons in exchange for inferior shield stats. But in many cases, when you have a weaker warframe that relies on like the shield replenish stats, you'll actually have to run both. It's pretty unfortunate. Hopefully you don't play a frame that needs that. God bless your soul. Primed vigor is not a real mod. It's here. Vigor is a mod as well. These there's not a lot of frames in the game with where the game is currently at that need both, but I thought I'd present it because you might get it and get excited. Don't use this mod, it stinks. Even the Proud version, which I just got recently actually for 900 days of logging in, it stinks. Which brings us to shield gating. So shield gating is a little bit complex, but once you understand it, again, so the way it works is your shield breaks, you get an amount of invulnerability that is based on your duration. That duration is based on your max shield. So why do we use catalyzing shields? Why is that a defensive survivability mod? It cuts our shields down, right? Because, okay, the logic is we have a large shield, so I get a large shield gate. Why am I cutting my shields down? The way catalyzing shields works is it drops your shield down, but gives you still a decent 1.33 full shield gate immunity duration. And why that's good, why we want to cut our shields down, is it because it allows them to be more easily recharged. That's the gimmick. So on Volt, for example, we've cut his shield from 455 to 105. This means that one cast of his discharge will fully replenish his shield, fully replenish the shield gate. And that's like a poor example, but like, you know, these builds and the way shield gating works is you're supposed to be able to spam your abilities, you know, like caster frames or whatever, and you're going to spam your ability, get your shield fully replenished via whether it's fast deflection, vigilante vigor, the augur set, whatever, and you get the shields back, so you get the gate back, and so you're just kind of effectively permanently invulnerable, so as long as you have the energy to sustain the casting, to sustain your shields. It's real basic, and one of the auras that really helps here is called Brief Respite. On ability cast, squads convert 150% of the energy spent to shields. That's basically it. Catalyzing shields makes it so your shields are lesser, but you still get a decent full shield gate duration. But because the shields are lesser, they're therefore easier to replenish. So just as a quick recap, Steel Fiber and Vitality, you stack the stats that work on their own. Ideally, you have some healing in there. Shield taking, very similar. Redirection, and if you want, if you don't have an ability that can easily replenish your shields, fast deflection helps a lot. Same with Vigilante Vigor. And you're going to want to stack things like Adaptation, Aviator, any source of external DR that is not tied to armor is very good. And then with shield gating, again, we want lower shields and some sort of gimmick, whether it is the augur set or fast deflection or whatever, to get the shields back up so we can keep getting that shield gate over and over. Have our shields fully replenish, break, shield gate. Fully replenish, break, shield gate. So on and so forth. So yeah, that's the main three methods of survivability and the mods that are attached to them. Oh, and two things. One miscellaneous mod I forgot to mention here is called the Rolling Guard. This mod is quite popular on like invisibility warframes. Basically, you become invulnerable and cleanse all status effects on you. It's got a 7-second cooldown, and you can become invulnerable for 3 seconds at max rank. This is going to be useful if you're an invis frame, because when you're an invis frame, you're like that is the second best form of survivability. But if you get caught by some random like Eximus, explosion or like toxic proc or whatever, Rolling Guard is really good for that. Likewise, what I wanted to mention is if you are looking for mods to get a certain stat, don't be afraid to use the search function to type armor, type shield. Anything related to shields, including the augur set, which I'm going to talk about in a second, will be there for you to help. So if you just don't be afraid to use the search feature. Fortunately, energy economy isn't very complicated, but it is very important. So all an energy economy is effectively how do we keep our energy high so we can cast our abilities consistently in order to complete our objective as fast as possible, staying alive, killing enemies, defending an objective, whatever, so on and so forth. There are 2 auras that help a lot in this instance, and that's Dreamer's Bond, the beginner aura that everyone should have, and Energy Siphon. These are pretty low in terms of how much energy they give you, but I mean, it's something, right? The energy econ usually just represents either energy replenishing, or in the case of flow, energy max. Energy max is really important. Flow is going to find its way into a lot of builds, especially when you're new. It just lets you hold on to more energy, so as you store it, you get to spend it more effectively. Energy Nexus is a pretty niche mod to get your hands on, but it's incredibly good, and unfortunately, you acquire it kind of late in the game. I hope they change that at some point, because I think a lot of Warframe players could really benefit from having a lot more energy to learn their Warframes and how abilities work. But Energy Nexus at max rank provides you with 3 energy regen per second, which is incredibly good, but real basic. Again, energy econ is generally pretty basic, especially when it comes to just modding. It gets more complicated with focus schools and other external factors, but modding is real simple. Equilibrium turns health pickups into energy. This is real basic. Health pickups are quite common when you're killing enemies, and this is just a great way to get more energy, especially if your Warframe has some way to get health orbs, or energy orbs for that matter. Most of orb abilities, drop both, but Equilibrium, insanely good. I know it can be achieved with an Archon shard, but max rank Equilibrium is some of the best energy econ you can get onto a frame. And then these two mods here do the same thing, Hunter Adrenaline and Rage. Basically, they turn damage to your health into energy. Now, late game, this is really only viable on pure health frames because, there's too much damage later in the game. However, early game, I think these mods are a little bit underrated because you're taking damage at a slower rate. So if you're in the middle of dying, for example, you have your shield that's removed and you have your shield gate expired, and now you're just taking damage to your health. That builds up enough energy to get your abilities back so that maybe you can live. Pretty underrated. I think a lot of players are pretty disconnected from the early game. But yeah, these two mods aren't too shabby, but mainly if you can get your hands on Energy Nexus, maybe ask like a veteran player for it. We'll have tons of copies, and then get Flow on there, and if you can generate orbs, Equilibrium is really good. But I would say Flow and Energy Nexus, along with any other external Warframe kit or companion synergies, will basically take care of your energy economy in most cases. Okay, so real quick, now we are going to discuss the bottom half of the stat spread here in our base stats. These have to do with our abilities. So ability duration, efficiency, range, and strength. They are pretty basic. Duration is going to affect the duration of our abilities, along with helping with channeled abilities, just like Exalted Blade, any Exalted Weapons, any channeled ability that is going to have a drain per second, duration helps with. Similarly, efficiency basically just reduces the cost of all of your abilities by a percentage based on what that efficiency is. Efficiency is very simple, fortunately. Efficiency, note, has a cap. Energy cost cannot be reduced below 25% of its initial value. This means technically the efficiency cap is 175%. Range is the most basic. It is the range of abilities. Be mindful with the way some abilities are more complicated, either directly or maybe just have like some weird mechanics that you don't know about. Range could affect damage in like a variety of ways, so just make sure you're very mindful when modding for it, but generally it's pretty simple. Strength is usually just going to be straight up damage, but it also affects certain certain percentages. So for example, if an ability provides damage vulnerability, that can scale with strength based on its value. So it's not just going to be, oh, the ability does more damage, but also if an ability strips armor, if you have 100% strength, it'll strip 50%. If you have 200% strength, it'll strip 100% of their armor. Or they'll be more vulnerable to damage, or whatever, so on and so forth. Strength will generally help with damage, and anything like kind of strength to damage related. That's really important. Okay, so now that we've covered the stats and kind of what they mean, what they do, how do we achieve them? Well, it's going to be through these mods. Now, these first set of mods I'm showing you is going to be these top 4. Again, this isn't a real build. This is just me using my Excalibur for mod display here. So these are what I call like the base mods. They provide just clean, honest stats. They do what they say on the tin. Real simple. So Streamline provides you with some efficiency, Stretch with a good amount of range, Intensify with some strength, and Continuity with duration. These have Prime variants, Umbral variants, Archon variants, but those aren't really important, and usually if there's a build video they're watching, the creator will explain, like mine for example, if you know what I'm saying. The creator will usually explain why they're using that particular variant. In the case of primed continuity, of course, it is just a straight up upgrade, but I don't expect you to have that as a new or even intermediate player to some degree. The Augur mods are similar. They provide a little less stats, but they provide a set bonus, which is incredibly useful when used together, or even just having one. that is useful in shield gating and shield tanking, where spending energy allows you to convert into shields, just like I mentioned with Brief Respite. This is the Augur set. It's very popular, and it's even more popular because it provides actually pretty competent stats in addition to the Augur set bonus. I believe it's 40% energy per stat. So in this case, we've got 4 Augur mods here. A build will usually feature 1 to 3, I would say. I don't see Augur Accord very often. But do note that there are Augur mods on secondaries. That's where the other 2 are. They're not on Warframe, so keep that in mind. If you want the full Augur set for maximum Augur set bonus, just know you'll have to put some mods on your secondary that you might normally not want to. But these mods will find themselves, for example, if you really want strength, Augur Seeks will probably find its way on the build. If you want range, Reach will find itself on the build. These are really good icing in terms of like what you really want your build to stress. Accord is not going to be very popular. I don't see it on hardly any builds, but if you have some compelling reason to have shield capacity and you want to contribute to the Augur set bonus, you totally can. Moving on to corrupted mods, these are incredibly important, and in the case of these mods, essentially they provide a very strong stat in exchange for a drawback stat. So in this case, for overextended, it's a ton of range, and you lose a good bit of strength there. Not nearly as much, like it's not a direct trade-off for the most part. Fleeting Expertise does have a direct trade-off, but this mod is less relevant, really. And Catalyzing Shields, that shield gating mod that I mentioned earlier, is also a corrupted mod. These are going to be acquired in Deimos, in the Orcan Derelict tile sets. You'll have to join a clan and craft these things called dragon keys and do a little scavenger hunt, but there are tons of guides for that content, so look those up. You do need these mods effectively, especially the 4 overextended, blind rage, narrow-minded, and transient fortitude. These mods are incredibly important that you get, and they will find their way onto one of your builds, basically whether you like it or not. If you want a really strong build for a wide majority of Warframes, these mods are really important because not only do they provide stats, but they're very specific to Warframes, kind of in the way that like you need to play a good bit of the frame that you want to mod to understand how a negative stat feels, right? So for a frame like Loki, for example, who has very little in terms of scaling strength, overextended is literally just a buff. That minus 60% ability strength might as well not exist because not much of what he has scales with strength. On a buffer on a weapons platform, transient fortitude might not feel great to take because we're losing duration in that. That's not worth it at all. And then a frame that has poor energy econ, blind rage is really bad. It could be worth the strength, but just having the knowledge of my frame's kit and what tools I have to my disposal, like, do I really want to take the minus efficiency even though that ability strength buff is really big? So obviously, like, if you're copying builds off of YouTubers, which like mine, for example, then it's not a huge deal. But if you're modding for yourself and labbing stuff out for yourself, these are kind of where people hit roadblocks. You just have to playtest. Don't be afraid to load into a mission like a survival for 2 minutes and determine whether something feels good with energy econ, duration, whatever. The key is to, if you're modding a frame, make sure you know it pretty well. Look at the base stats, see how they'd be affected, so on and so forth. So these mods are like relatively simple, but the way you apply them is what's complex, and it's the trademark of a really good modder. So next I'm going to be covering what I call niche mods or flex mods and arcanes, all kind of in one go here. I've just put some examples on the screen, although there are plenty of niche mods. Basically, these cover kind of every other semi-useful mod that exists. For example, if I'm playing a flyer, I might want, the Boreal set here provides DR while airborne, which is really good. If I want casting speed, Natural Tailing exists. If I'm full health, we've got the Hunter Adrenaline here for health to energy. If I'm swapping weapons a lot, like I have a primer, Vigor swap is good. These are kind of like, most builds will allow for a flex slot, and that's where this is gonna come into play. So Carnus Carapace here, like, oh, some extra armor, some extra health, maybe I want that. Or the set, maybe set bonuses are usually what's important here. Really, just whatever mod, express yourself, get comfortable, see what you like. It's really important. And then likewise we have arcanes. Arcanes are similar to mods. Don't overthink it. Right? Like, okay, I'm shield tanking, for example. I'll just type shield and see what options I've got. Okay, I'll type strength and I'll see what I got. It's not that big of a deal. Like, some really good base ones are Molt Augmented, which just gives you strength, Molt Efficiency, which just gives you duration when your shields are up. Like, really basic mods really basic arcanes. Really don't put too much stress into it. I would say many arcanes work on many frames and just do what you feel comfortable with. There are some really strong arcanes that are build defining, but again, just experiment. It's going to be pretty obvious what your build wants, but arcanes go from very niche, like summoners, in the case of Kamisato, or just, hey, we like want some extra primary damage, like go ahead, Arcane Rage. Real simple. Don't think about arcanes too much. Just try to bolster your strengths or cover weaknesses. It's really that simple. Same principle as modding has. It's just, you know, it's got a different flavor to it. And lastly, before our modding demonstration, I just wanted to cover augments really fast. Augments are incredibly niche mods that only work on a Warframe ability. So in this case, I've got a lot of Volts augments here. Augments are really important. They vary in strength, I would say, from weak to like personal taste to legitimately like tier defining. Frost is a good example of he's got an augment that gives his ultimate overguard. When he uses it to him and his teammates, that moves Frost from like A to S tier straight up. So they vary in strength quite a bit, but I would say most of them sit in the middle of like fun. For example, Volt's shield augment, Transistor Shield, lets my teammates pick up my shield. If I want to play like a supportive Volt playstyle, is that the best way to play Volt? Categorically no, not really. But I can have a Volt build where I use capacitance to use discharge to give my teammates full shields all the time, and then they can pick up my little electric shields, and then shock troop where I can give them buffs. Like there's way. Augments basically serve to pivot your build into a certain direction by augmenting abilities. It's really simple, but it's, in my opinion, it's one of my favorite mechanics in the game because it changes the way that you would use an ability normally. So moving on to the demonstration, this will be the most important part of the video, and if you skip to it, quite frankly, I don't blame you, but we're going to build a Volt together. So ideally, you've played a little bit of the frame that you want to mod, that way you kind of understand what you like. Most frames do have like 2 to 3 ways to play them, based around certain abilities, augments, whatever. In this case, I've decided, I've played a lot of Volt, I've decided I really want to be a mage. I want to be a lightning mage, and I want to be pretty independent. So I want to be able to tank for myself while doing decent amounts of damage in CC and maybe even supporting my team a little bit. So the first step we're going to take is picking our aura. Now auras, again, the priority is that you're getting a matching polarity so you can have the most mod space, because I'm in that balance. Aura effects aren't that important, but I've decided here I'm going to go for corrosive projection. Another great option would be growing power for that ability strength, but I've decided, well, I'm doing electric damage, I don't have a way to shred armor, so I think that corrosive projection will be the best choice to increase my damage for my mage build that I want. Next, survivability. Well, Volt has pretty high base shields, and I've done my research. I've played a lot of Volt. I know capacitance can replenish shields, so I know I also won't have to build that much in terms of shield recharge. I'll just want to get the shielding on. So what I'll do is I'll search, say I don't know the name of the mod, for example. I'll search shield, I'll look around, redirection has the highest shield capacity. I've got the prime version, but that's not super relevant. Pop it on there. Okay, got a lot of shields, and then I know for sure about his augment capacitance. I'll put it on there, so I have a big shield pool. I can restore those shields, and if I really wanted to, say I'm going into high level content, I could also put on adaptation if I wanted to, but for now I don't really think that's necessary, so I'm not going to pop it on there yet. Next we have energy economy, and that's going to be, well, I'm a mage, so I'm going to want flow. That's going to be max energy. There is really only one max energy mod for the most part. There's like I think 1 or 2 other ones, but flow's the main one. So likewise, if I would type energy, I would find what I'm looking for, but it's a little bit vague. I would try to learn the names of the mods if possible. And then maybe I want energy nexus as well, actually, to replenish energy, because Volt has no built-in energy regain, which is important to know. So okay, I've covered the top portion here of my stat line. I've got good survivability and pretty decent energy economy. Now I want to look at my duration, efficiency, range, and strength. When I think about discharge, because I've played a lot of Volt, I definitely know for sure that I want a decent bit of range and strength, and I know that discharge has a 20-meter base radius, which is a pretty competent base radius. So I'm going to prioritize range first. Even if I can't nuke a whole map, at least I'll stun a whole map, and that's enough for me. So what I'll search here is range, and I know for sure I want stretch, because stretch is really good. I know that I have the Archon variety of stretch, which it provides the same stat line, but abilities that deal electricity damage restore 2 energy per second over 5 seconds. That seems really good, so I'm going to equip that, and I'm also going to take note that it has really high drain over regular stretch, so I'm going to switch primed flow and Archon stretch here to maximize my capacity. That way, the polarized dash polarity there is going to eat up 8 of the Archon stretch's drain, as opposed to 6 of the primed flow's drain, which is really important. And in that case, I see I've increased to about 30 meters of range. I want a little more, so I've got 2 options. I've got overextended, and I've got augur reach. Augur reach, it provides just a little bit of range, but also provides that augur bonus, which I probably won't need because I've got capacitance. But overextended provides a ton of range. I mean, I can get up to almost 50 meters. If I had them both, I've got 53 meters. But overextended tanks my strength, which I've established I definitely want to be able to nuke maps. So I don't think overextended is really going to work for me. I don't think I want that. And then I think to myself, well, I've just applied Archon Stretch. That's got energy regen to it. Do I really need Energy Nexus? And this is a totally normal part of modding. Sometimes you will you'll throw mods on in a certain order, and then as you build, you decide, I don't think I really need the Energy Nexus here. So I'll put Augur Reach in there. So now I need some damage. Where am I going to find that? Well, I'm just going to type Strength. That's kind of the easiest way to do it. In this case, I think I can put Intensify in there and think about it later. Duration, I don't care for super hard. I'm not really playing for speed all that much, and I can also balance out, minus 27% duration is kind of whatever. I can compensate for that pretty easily. And then I'll look, there's actually variants of Intensify. There's Archon Intensify, which restoring health with abilities grants 30% ability strength. I can't do that, so that's going to be a waste of mod space if I elect for that. But now I see Precision Intensify, and I'm like, okay, 90% ability strength, which is, a lot more than 30%, but it only goes towards my 4th ability. Well, I'm building for Shock and Discharge, but Discharge is like the big thing I'm building towards, so Precision Intensify lends itself really well to this build, so I'm going to pop it in there. Same amount of Drain, fortunately. And I could put Transient Fortitude in there for the strength, but I decide, well, okay, 9 seconds of speed is really not that efficient. I do want to run around fast. That's still important to me. So what I'm going to use is first I'm going to search duration, even though I know what mod it is, it's continuity, and I'll look for continuity. And I'll see the Archon variant, abilities that inflict toxins. Well, that's useless to me on Bolt. I'm not applying any toxin with abilities, and I see primed continuity here, and I know, okay, I've just canceled out Transient Fortitude, even though I'm using corrupted mods, or a corrupted mod in this case. I'm still ending up with no negatives here, all positives. It's just how I'm weighing out what I'm prioritizing. And in this case, Xless mod, again, I've established that Xless mods aren't super impactful, but I would say I want range, so I'll use a mod like Cutting Drift. That'll be the choice I go for that. And I like, having some slide as minus friction is whatever. And then Arcanes, well, again, don't overthink it. I'm a shield tank, so Aegis is good. I'll type shield, get Aegis. Boom. My power strength is a little low. By the way, this is inaccurate. It's 155 for my first 3 abilities, but my ultimate has Precision Intensify, which this does not account for. But I want some more ability strength, so I'm gonna type strength, and I'll see there's a couple options. I've got augmented, which I'm gonna be killing a lot, so I think augmented sounds pretty good. But if I'm casting, operator abilities, I can also opt for Multivigor. That's a totally fine choice. And boom, that's a build that does everything I set out to do. What you set out to do is tied to you as a person and what you enjoy. Do whatever you want, even if it doesn't work, you can lab. Warframe is an easy game. If you mod even semi-decently, you will achieve almost whatever goal you can set out to. That's why this game is so beautiful, but this really beautiful part of the game is kind of clouded by modding being kind of a little bit difficult, and that's okay. That's why I'm aiming to help you here. So hopefully this little like sample has been beneficial to you. And now I've got this new awesome Thunder God fashion frame to match my new Thunder God build I've just set up. So really exciting stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed. I think the demonstration was the most useful part of the video for sure. But I'm pretty detached from the new player experience, and I think Warframe does a semi-poor job of teaching you exactly what everything does. So I've included about as much as I could without it becoming completely overbearing. But hope you guys enjoyed. Any questions or criticisms, leave them in the comments. I respond to nearly every comment. I appreciate you guys' support endlessly. The next video in this series will be on weapon modding, which is a little less complicated in some ways, a little more in some ways. So hopefully that'll be a treat. And thank you guys again for the support. So much love. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye.